Recording in progress.
Is that on? I know, I just turned it on. Sorry, I'm getting used to the microphone. Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. I'm Andrea Kelly, the chair. With me here in the chamber, we have committee members Randy Block from Ward 2, Allison Leary from Ward 1. Oh, sorry, that's right, 4. Tariq Lucas from Ward 2, Allison Leary, Ward 1, and Stephen Farrell from Ward 8. And let's see who else we have online. Ellen Lobovitz and Andrea Downs. And am I missing somebody else yet or not? And Councillor Albright, who is not on the committee but is here with us. From the city, we have our city clerk, Scott Matthews. We have Kat Kemet from the planning department. We have, I'm quite sure, Jonah Temple. I'm not used to seeing this yet, from the law department. And Joey Nodosi from the planning department also. I'm getting the hang of it. Thank you for your perseverance with me. Tonight, we're going to start with quite a few Class 2 auto dealer licenses, and I'm just going to read each one into the record, but we can vote on them all together. The first one is number 15-24, Class 2 auto dealer license for Stan's Automotive Inc. at 249 Center Street in Newton Corner. Number 1624, Class 2 auto dealer license for Moto Cars of Boston at 1191 Washington Street, West Newton. 17-24, Class 2 auto dealers license Jacob and Associates at 1232 Washington Street, also West Newton, 02465. Number 1824, Class 2 auto dealer license KG Motors LLC at 1235 Washington Street. Number 1924, Class 2 auto dealers license Enzo's Auto Sales at 10 Hawthorne Street. Number 20-24, Class 2 auto dealers at Velocity Motors, Hawthorne Street. Before we vote to approve these, we're just going to check with our clerk that everything has been checked out in terms of taxes paid, etc. So we're all good to go forward. Are there any questions or comments from anyone here or at home on any of these? If not, I'll take a motion to approve all of them together. Thank you, Councillor Lucas. So moved. Second?
Second.
It sounded like it was Councillor Downs. Let's take a vote.
Councillor Block. Councillor Downs.
Aye.
Councillor Farrell. Councillor Kelly.
Aye.
Councillor Leary.
Aye.
Councillor Lobovitz.
Aye.
Councillor Lucas.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the other requests for public hearings and special permits. Excuse me. Number 14-24 is a request for extension of time to exercise a special permit number 419-22 at 148 Auburndale Ave. Christopher and Gretchen Rutan are asking for an extension of time to construct a 2-story additions to the front and rear of their dwelling. Do we have, now that would be me from Ward 3, so I would like a thank you. Councillor Lucas is moving to say yay to an extension of time. Second on that.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I think Councillor Leary got that. Let's take a vote. Mr. Clerk, is that a roll call on extension of time? Thought so.
Yep. Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell, Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
motion passes.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Anyone sitting at home cannot hear the counselors unless they use their mics in the room.
So noted.
Thank you. Everyone's aware of that now. We appreciate it. Moving on, the next item is number 13-24. A request to further extend a non-conforming FAR at 140 Dickerman Road. Martine Martel is petitioning for a special permit to enclose a second level sun porch and construct a new basement access. First, we'll hear from the planning department on this proposal.
Good evening, Joe O'Donoghue. I'll be covering 140 Dickerman Road. So this is a special permit request where they are converting their porch to living space. It's currently not enclosed space, and also constructing a sunken patio, new basement access, and this puts them out of conforming FAR floor area ratio, which is why they are requesting the special permit.
Is there anything more you want to present about this petition, Joe?
Yes, that's correct. So this is the section of the ordinance which requires their relief. The criteria to consider here is that they are proposing to increase their floor area ratio from 0.48 to 0.52, where 0.44 is the maximum allowed by right, given they are in an SR2 and given the size of the lot, and that separately from these 2 points is that it is not in derogation of size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, and similarly, that is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. This is a look at where the property is in close proximity to the Elliott T stop to the southwest of City Hall, and close to Route 9 and that CVS and Plaza over on the other side of Newton Highlands. This is a look at the site plan. On the left, you can see what exists currently, and on the right, you see what's proposed. There are 2 pieces of work that are proposed. The first is going to be enclosing that sun porch, and the second is going to be the proposed sunken patio. As you can see from the 2 site plans, it is all within the existing footprint, and there's also no vertical work that is going to happen. It is just those 2 pieces of work. We'll look at the elevations showing where the work is going to be done. As you can see, those are places that exist on the building currently, but are getting closed in with regards to the sun porch and getting lowered down with regards to the sunken patio. We'll take a break from that for any comments or questions.
Oh, thank you for your presentation. Is there someone here for the petitioner who would like to speak?
Yes. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
My name is Lee Dearborn. I am the principal designer and general contractor. And I think Joe covered it very clearly, what we're proposing to do, which is just enclose the covered porch on the second level with windows and simply sink the rear patio that is below that covered porch to create a private sunken patio area, which will also improve basement access. By sinking that patio, we take a few steps down, and then we create a hidden door bulkhead access that takes us down some steps further to the basement. So it's all done, to kind of conceal this this basement bulkhead access in a aesthetically pleasing way, and more useful way for the backyard to be a more useful space. And that is pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Dearborn. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak? I don't see any hands on Zoom. I don't see anyone in the chamber, so we'll take it within the council. Councilor Leary?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looks like a lovely project. I just wanted to ask if there were going to be any changes to impervious surface.
No, there's no change to impervious surface.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from committee members? As far as I see, really the only issue here is the increase from the maximum 0.44 FAR to 0.52. But as the planning department covered it, it does not seem to be a questionable issue here. No other comments from the committee? Oh, Councilor Downs.
Madam Chair, this is in my ward. It looks like a great project, very close to the T. Pass by this all the time. When you're ready, I will move to close the public hearing and to move approval.
I think we're ready for that. Councilor Lucas, did you have a comment? Oh, thank you. I couldn't see the hand up on my screen. So there has been a motion by Councilor Downs to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 Let's take a look at the conditions.
Okay, I'll share the screen again. Okay. So we have the findings are that it is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and abutting properties, not in derogation of size, scale, design of other structures in the vicinity. Given the additions are at the rear of the building, it will not add to the footprint or height of the building. And then the conditions are standard conditions. And then that's it for that presentation. Would you like me to bring up the draft council order?
Yes, please.
The proposed increase in the non-conforming floor area ratio from 0.48 to 0.52, where 0.44 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood because the lot is undersized and the increase in floor area is within the footprint of the structure.
Are there any other questions or comments on the findings or conditions from the committee members? If not, we will move on. I believe Councilor Downs also made a motion to
I did.
which we can vote on now.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrow,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on. Docket item 11-24 is a request to exceed the FAR and vertically extend a non-conforming setback in an accessory building at 887 Com Ave. Aroni Brothers LLC petition for special permit and site plan approval to construct additions to all sides of the dwelling.
Oh, I need you to send me a check.
We have a special permit request for 887 Com Ave. Where they're proposing some work on their first and second story of the main dwelling, which will exceed floor area ratio and continue some non-conforming side setbacks with their work on the accessory building, which will be the garage to the rear.
May I ask who's speaking?
This is Joe Iadonisi again. I apologize.
It's great. Thanks, Joe, for
Oh, okay.
identifying yourself each time.
Okay, so the relief requested is going to be to exceed the floor area ratio and to alter and vertically extend a non-conforming rear setback in the detached accessory building. So the criteria to consider is that the site is in an appropriate location for the additions to the dwelling and garage exceeding the floor area ratio, that the proposed additions will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that the proposed addition will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, that the proposed increase in the floor area ratio from 0.39 to 0.48, where 0.41 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. The proposed addition will alter and extend the non-conforming side setback, will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming detached structure is to the neighborhood. And that the proposed detached structure will alter and extend the non-conforming rear setback will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming detached structure is to the neighborhood. Look at the location. It is very close to City Hall, just located to the east of Bulla Pond and on the north side of Comm Ave in between City Hall and Heartbreak Hill. Look at the site plan. There are 3 pieces of work that they're proposing. The first is that they're proposing work for the first story is going to be a carport, and the second story will be living space over that as well. And then they are also proposing an addition above where there's just one floor over on the right or east side of the building. To the rear, they're going to raise the existing garage and replace that with a garage. I'll look at the elevations to show where that work is happening. As you can see, that extends the second floor to both the right and the left as you would face it from the street, and adds that carport in the bottom left. And then they're also going to have a lower height for that top story, which is going to reduce some of that livable space up there and compensate partially for the amount of living space that they're adding on that second floor as they increase the floor area ratio with those additions. This is a look from the sides. And this is a look at the garage as it is proposed, which appears to fit 2 vehicles and is below 22 feet in height. And I will pause there for any questions.
Thank you very much. I see Mr. Aroni here. On behalf of the petitioner, would you like to add something to that?
Job well done. I mean, he nailed it. The initial garage, the existing garage has been raised about 7 months ago. It was dilapidated, it was unsafe, and historic administrative waived the process. Can you still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Administratively waived the process. So we were able to take that down. The existing garage was just a few feet, I believe 4.5 off of the left side elevation, the left side property line, and it was directly on the rear property line. So to give both our neighbors some breathing room, we moved it over 7.5 feet off the left side, and we moved it 2.5 feet off the rear. The space above the new garage where we are requesting to exceed FAR is simply going to be for storage space. It's crazy for me to say this since I grew up in a small 1,200 square foot Cape, but in today's living standards, we're trying to find a place for storage for the potential buyer of this home without taking up livable space in the single family home itself. So we figured we'd move it over to the garage rather than just have that wasted crawl space up there. We worked closely with all the abutting neighbors on this project. The Mickleys and Doobie, the neighbor to our right. We do have letters of support, to prove this claim. I also had a very pleasant conversation with Miss Susan Albright. I see she's on tonight. Hello, Susan. This project's run by her. We had 2 great meetings with Historic. Historic signed off on the project. So I feel we've done our due diligence. The Aroni brothers, we do a lot of work in Newton. We seem to find these projects that require us to go through historic and special permit on most of them. So I feel like we kind of know our ways a little bit. First and foremost, we wanted to make sure the neighbors were happy with what we were doing. And after, we developed a relationship with them, we hit the design, and we feel we did a good job on it. So I'm open to any questions that the council might have.
Thank you, Mr. Roney.
Thank you.
We'll see if there are questions or comments from the public before we ask if there are any questions or comments from the committee members.
I'd like to ask a question. Can you hear me?
I can, Jerry. Yes, sir.
So my name is Jerry Zolet. I live at 32 Commonwealth Park. So if you look at the map, my backyard looks across the one that is directly behind the property in question. And previously there was a fence that ran along the backyard of that property, which kind of aesthetically sort of broke up, the building and the garage. And I'm wondering if you have plans to replace that when you finish the construction.
Absolutely, Jerry. On the site plan, we're now going to install a small retaining wall that goes all the way down the left side of the property, and it's going to slightly return to the right to hold back that grade change. And then we're going to do exactly what's on the site plan. We're going to have a small little retaining wall. We'll do a nice 4-foot black aluminum fence, and then we'll line the entire rear of the property with mature king green emerald arborvitaes, approximately 12 to 14 feet in height, to allow you and to allow the potential or the future buyers of the home significant privacy.
That's great. And I guess one last question, will the arborvitae also be planted behind the garage, or does it stop at the garage?
No, sir, all the way behind the garage. I wanted to give you some breathing room back there, so that's why we moved it off the fence. And we plan on surrounding the entire perimeter of the property with these mature trees. And I apologize, we're just chatting now. You must be very busy. I tried to reach you a couple times, and I've left several letters in your mailbox, but maybe you and I can reunite during the week at some time, and I can give you all my personal info.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you, Jerry.
Can I just add something to what John said? My name is Bruce Mickley. I abut the Aroni's property on the left-hand side, and I just want to let everybody know that John and his brothers really paid a lot of attention to all of our issues and concerns, and we wholeheartedly support his project the way it's being presented this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mickley.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, sir. Would you like to come up to the microphone?
Press the button.
And just give us your name and address.
Sure. My name is Joe Rastusha. I live at 12 Hazelton Road in Newton, Mass. And I am an abutter of this property in the rear. And I want to start by saying I am opposed to granting the permit. There was a house that was built on Royce Road, which sits at the end of Hazelton Road, that received an FAR exclusion. And that house continues to be an eyesore and a problem in the neighborhood. It dwarfs everything around it. I'm in favor of upgrading of the house in question. And I'm certainly in favor of the improvement. But I find it difficult to find a reason to do this other than the profit of the developer who is undertaking the project. I think it will provide a scale of home in that area of Comm Ave in our neighborhood that is out of line with the other homes. And I'm hoping that this board will move to not approve the FAR as listed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Restusha. Anyone else?
I can respond to Mr. Restusha if you feel it's necessary.
Sure, let's do that. Thank you, Mr. Roney.
Sure, absolutely. You know, I'm not only building in the community. I live here. My son goes to school here. I'm proud of the work we do. So the reputation means a lot to me. So, Mr. Restusha, I appreciate your comment. I took it into great consideration before I even designed this place. I've actually held on to it for a long period of time to make sure that it fit the lot. So I agree with you on that. A lot of times people come in, they see the street address and they just want to maximize their FAR. They just want to expand as big as they can, make it as glamorous as they can, and then they leave. But I want you to know I only live a couple miles from you. I drive up and down this street no less than 20 times a day. The ridge height that I'm allowed to do by right is 36 feet. I'm only building 28 feet tall simply because I didn't want to drown you out in shadows in your own backyard. So that's significantly less. I'm forfeiting a tremendous amount of living space on a third floor that I would be allowed to have by right. The only reason I'm exceeding FAR, sir, is because I'm looking for a couple extra square feet, and it's not by much, in the top floor of the garage, simply for the family to stock away Christmas ornaments or seasonal clothing or some work tools or things like that. You know, other than that, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm always willing to hear things out. More than happy to meet you for a cup of coffee or something like that. But like I said, by right, I'm allowed 36 feet tall. We're only going 28. That's a significant cutback. We gave all the abutting neighbors to the left, right, and rear breathing room from what was existing, from what is already existing. We've pulled the house back off of the property lines. We're going to put up all brand new greenery and landscaping. If you wish, somehow contact me. My information's public knowledge. I'll email you all the 3D renderings, or I can even drop it off at your house, but I think you'll be thrilled and overjoyed, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Mr. Aroni.
Thank you.
We're happy to have heard your comments, though, Mr. Restusha. Let's take this into committee. I don't see any members of the public who'd like to speak, and then we'll also then take other counselors. I see another non-committee member counselor hand up, but let's take it into committee first. If there are any comments from land use committee members, comments, questions? She's not in the committee.
Oh, she's not good.
I'll do her next. Yes, Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Aroni, I think this is a good project. What I really like about what you did with this one, not so much the project, but your community outreach to the neighbors. It was good that you got two letters of support from the abutting neighbors. And the zoning relief that you are asking for is minimal, just FAR and extending a non-conforming setback. You even improved one of them, I think, for the garage. I think this is a good project. I'll be voting in favor. And Chair, when ready, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and ready for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll probably get to that very soon. Councilor Albright.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I just want to start by saying that I've worked with Mr. Aroni before on another project in this ward on it's Cummings Road, I believe it is, and it's really a beautiful project and very appropriate for the neighborhood. So I start by saying that I like the project, but I just have a couple of questions. So what will be the floor to ceiling height on the third floor when you finish at the project? What's your plan?
Miss Albright, in the garage, ma'am, where I'm seeking the FAR relief?
No, in the main house.
The main house, it'll be 9 feet in the basement, 9 feet on the first and second floor.
So there'll be no third floor anymore?
No, ma'am, I reduced the height. It'll simply be used for HVAC equipment and small storage space. If anything, if I have any space left after all my ductwork's put through there, it'll be accessible through a pull down. And I did that to reduce the height, just so the house didn't seem so large and overscaled. I kind of wanted to keep the balance, Patrick Ahern type inspired feel going up and down Comm Ave, the way I feel that, it probably was meant to be back in the early 1900s.
So what will the floor to ceiling is? Can you stand up upstairs, up in the third floor area?
No, ma'am, no.
Okay. So it's obviously less than 7 feet, but I was just
Yeah.
wondering how much less.
Yeah, if this helps you, Miss Albright, the total height of the ridge is only 28 feet, where where I could build to 36.
Yeah, okay. So less than 3 feet? I mean,
No, I would say maybe 4 feet,
okay,
approximately 4.5 feet. It's going to be just enough for my HVAC guy to work up a sweat and get up there and put his ductwork
okay.
up there.
And the square footage of the house at the end of the day, how big is it?
Yep, I'll tell you in 2 seconds. I used to have this memorized. I apologize. It's a little over 5,000 square feet.
Does that include the garage?
That includes, the garage will be 500 square feet.
So it's,
I'll tell you right now. I apologize.
If I may add, that is also including some of the basement space, I believe. We have from the floor area worksheet at 4,044 square feet of total gross floor area.
okay, 4044?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for
That-
chiming in, sir. I appreciate that.
That makes me feel better.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think that the gentleman who's concerned about the size of the house will be pleasantly surprised that it's not a McMansion style house.
It's far. It's going to be far from that.
Yeah. And it's almost it's in my neighborhood for sure. So I will be
Yes.
happy to have it there.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Is that it for you, Counselor Albright?
Yes, it is. Thanks.
And Joe, thank you for stepping in on the square footage. Counselor Leary?
Welcome.
I was curious about the square foot too. What was the square footage of the original house?
The original, the home was 3,800 square feet, but that was just including the first and second floor. It didn't include the attic and it didn't include the basement. The square footage that you're provided includes everything.
Yes, it's just, we measure the square foot the same, so it's going from 3,800 to 4,440. Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. Yes, that's correct.
I have 3,253 existing square feet for total gross floor area, so that it would also be excluding the basement.
Mm-hmm.
I like the design of the house, and I'm glad it's not overly tall. Are you removing any trees?
Trees have been removed. They were approved by Mark Welch, and we're going to put all the mature emerald arborvitaes along the entire perimeter, left, right, and rear, to provide the neighbors as well as the future homeowners with plenty of privacy, as well as aesthetic plantings, white hydrangeas, ornamental grass, and things like that.
Or do you have to replant, do replacement trees on the site?
Let me see, did we, yeah,
How many caliber inches did you remove?
we do. I think I have about, off the top of my head, about 58 caliper inches. We only removed one tree that was in the back. It was situated in the middle of the rear of the property, which made it difficult to maneuver around.
So
But I
you
plan
removed
on,
one huge tree, 58?
it was one, yes, ma'am, it was one large tree. It
What
was
species
growing,
was it?
I'm sorry,
I was
It
just
was-
curious, what species tree was it?
it was an American elm.
Well, that's
What it
tragic.
did was, it was growing through the foundation on the right side of the garage with the root system going through the rear of the property. It was attaching itself to the foundation of the home. And it just overwhelmed the entire property. But we plan on far surpassing the caliper inch requirement on this project. just in the arborvitae's alone, that'll be bordering all three sides. That'll put us over. But
Yeah.
we're never focused on just caliper replacement. We focus on, the final painting and making sure it looks perfect.
Right. There's
We,
just,
we don't
for me,
pin,
there's no comparison between a mature American elm and arborvitae's, but
I agree
but
with
it's
you.
not
I
really
couldn't,
hurt
I
me
couldn't agree.
either.
I couldn't agree with you more, ma'am. If I could have transplanted that anywhere on the property, I would have done it.
What's the change in impervious surface?
Let me pull this up for you. Hold on. It's on the site plan. That's I'll tell you what. Do you mind if I share my screen, if that's okay?
It's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can you see the screen okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Little intro. This is some of the stuff that we've done in the area, just so you get an idea of how we build. There's no cookie cutter going on here. We don't cut back. We want to be proud of what we leave behind. This is all in Auburndale.
Mr.
you
Aroni, I
just
think
go to
we're
the
just
project?
looking for a landscape plan for this particular project, though.
Yep. Yep. This was the existing. Here's the proposed. So let me see. If we put the trees on here. This is a general idea of what you're going to have. This was a view from the Mickley's yard. We produced this 3D rendering for them so they would have an idea of what they would be looking at. And just picture these trees going along the whole rear of the property with the small retaining wall. That's all I have for that.
Councilor
Yeah,
Lewis,
that's all.
does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't
Continue.
answer my question. I asked about, is there a change in impervious surface?
Oh, that's right. Here we go. My apologies, ma'am. All right. Let's zoom in right here. Open space requirement. 4155. We're going to still have behind 5,025.
So your open
Lot
space is
coverage.
going up, is that right?
The open space is going up.
So does that mean that you have more pervious surface now?
That means I have over 60% more pervious surface. Yes.
60% more impervious surface?
60.5% of my surface will be pervious as opposed to what it currently is now at 50%.
Okay, that answers my question.
So approximately a 10% increase.
Yep.
Any follow-up? Are you all set?
I'm all
Councilor
set.
Leary?
Thank you very much.
Are there any other committee members or councilors who have questions or comments? Last call for members of the public. If not, we will take up Councilor Lucas's motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Let's take a look at the findings and conditions.
Findings are that the proposed additions to the second story of the principal building that will exceed the maximum allowed floor area ratio of 0.41 with an increase from 0.39 to 0.48 will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and abutting properties and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the vicinity. The additions will result in a building that matches the character and style of neighborhood dwellings. Second finding is that the proposed additions that will extend the structure vertically within the non-conforming rear setback are not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the vicinity. The proposal shows an increase in the setbacks that bring the property closer to compliance and will be screened by the fence and vegetation on the property. And the draft council order. Is that the site in the SR2 zone is an appropriate location for the additions to the dwelling and garage that exceed the floor area ratio. The proposed additions will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The proposed additions will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. The proposed increase in the floor area ratio from 0.39 to 0.48, where 0.41 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. The proposed addition, which will alter and extend the non-conforming side setback, will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming detached structure is to the neighborhood, and that the proposed detached structure, which will alter and extend the non-conforming rear setback, will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming detached structure is to the neighborhood.
And Joe, I think that you were going to go to the conditions as well. This is Elisa Sandoval from the planning department.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you, Elisa.
Yeah, sure, no
Standard
problem.
conditions. Let me know if I need to go back to either before and sharing my screen, but that's all I have to share for now.
Can you go back on, excuse me, can you go back to the last slide? The last previous, I'm sorry. No, the one after, wasn't there one after that?
There was the order, the draft order.
Yes, can you go to the draft? Yeah. Can you look at number 7 and make sure it says what you just read? There you go. Thank you for the correction.
My apologies.
Thanks,
Good
Alan.
call, Counselor Lobovitz. Are there any other questions or comments on the findings, conditions, or council order? If not, let's take a vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Aroni.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a good night.
The next item before us is number 10-24, which is a request to allow 3 single-family attached dwellings in 2 buildings and to waive certain dimensional requirements and 2 parking stalls at 199 Church Street. Let's hear from planning.
All right, hopefully everyone can see my screen and hear me. My name is Kat Kemet. I'm a senior planner in the current planning staff for the city. This is petition number 10-24. It's a special permit for 199 Church Street. The site is located on Church Street in a predominantly residential area. There are several commercial uses to the north, a municipal building, and a religious building to the east. This parcel and several abutting parcels are zoned multi-residence 1 with some multi-residence 2, MR2 parcels to the north and east. This is the existing site plan. The property consists of a 10,688 square foot lot. It's improved with a 2-family dwelling that was constructed in 1851. There's also a detached accessory structure that is currently used as an accessory apartment at the rear. There's a special permit from 2022 for the property that granted, among other things, some dimensional relief that allowed for the use of that structure as an accessory apartment. There are a number of existing nonconformities on the site that includes the lot size, which is 10,688 square feet, where 15,000 square feet would be required. The frontage of 75 feet, where 80 feet is required. The front building has a setback of 19.5 feet, where 25 feet is required. The front building has a side setback of 8.5 feet, where 25 feet is required. The rear building has a side setback of 1.5 feet, where 25 feet is required. Rear building also has a smaller rear setback of 1.3 feet, where 25 feet is required. And the lot coverage is 28.8%, where up to 25% is allowed by right. It has vehicular access via a paved driveway that runs along the length of the east property line, so that's along the right-hand side. There are 4 parking stalls next to the main building to serve the 2-family structure and the detached accessory apartment. The petitioner here is proposing to convert the existing accessory apartment on the site that's at the rear into a separate dwelling unit and construct a new parking stall. So this results in 3 single-family attached dwellings in 2 separate structures on the lot, with the exception of the new parking stall. So there will be 5 parking stalls where there were previously 4, and the change in use. The relief that is listed here applies largely to the existing buildings on the site. No new structures or major renovations to the buildings themselves are proposed. So the relief needed here is to allow the proposed use, which is 3 attached dwellings in 2 separate buildings in MR1. No changes are going to be made to either structure, but it does need relief for several existing nonconformities for this new use. The front structure, which has a nonconforming front setback of 19.5 feet and side setback of 8.6 feet, where 25 feet is required. The rear building, which has the nonconforming side setback and nonconforming rear setback. Because the setbacks that apply to the accessory apartment is a little bit different from what will apply if and when it is approved as single family, there's a little bit of additional relief. That includes the setback that is currently conforming of 11.7 feet that would now be non-conforming. It also needs relief for the lot area per unit, which is proposed at 3,500 square feet, where 4,000 square feet is required, and the lot coverage, which is 28.8%, where a max of 25% is allowed by right. For parking, a waiver of 1 stall is needed. They are creating 1 new stall. So for the 6 units, 6 stalls would be required by right. This needs a waiver of 1 since only 5 are proposed. Relief is also needed to allow parking in the front and side setbacks and to allow a driveway within 10 feet of the side lot line and parking within 20 feet of the side lot line. In reviewing this request, the council should consider if the site and structure is an appropriate location for the 3 single-family attached dwellings, if the dwellings will adversely affect the neighborhood, if the proposed dwellings will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved, and if literal compliance with the required amount of parking is infeasible due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot. This is the proposed site plan. The petitioner proposes to convert the accessory apartment in the rear into a separate single-family dwelling. This will result in 3 single-family attached dwellings in the 2 structures. The changes are internal, and there are essentially 3 dwelling units now. There will continue to be 3, but the use will be different, and some of the rules that apply to ownership will be different, but same amount of dwelling units in total. The changes proposed are really limited to the construction of 1 parking stall within the front setback, that will be here, and a paved walkway from the street to the front entrance of the front building. The existing curb cut on Church Street and the driveway will be maintained. The 4 surface parking stalls will also be maintained, with that 5th stall added in the front. No parking is allowed within the front and side setbacks for this project. So this plan proposes 1 new parking stall that is within the front setback and the 4 existing stalls within the side setback. So that does require relief. For single-family attached dwellings in MR1, no parking space may be located within 20 feet of a lot line, and no driveway may be located within 10 feet of a side or rear lot line. So the existing driveway and parking are both within 5 feet of the eastern side lot line, so they do require relief. The new stall at the front will be 19 by 9 feet in size and parallel to the front facade of the main building. The stall requires relief because it's located entirely within the front setback from Church Street. Because it will be located so close to the street, staff recommend the applicant consider relocating the stall further back or utilizing pervious pavers rather to facilitate drainage on the site. Otherwise, the department is not concerned with the proposed change in use. The change should be fairly minimal impact on the neighborhood. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Like to now see if there are any questions or comments from members of the public. Oh, yes, actually more important, the petitioner. Somebody to speak on behalf of the petitioner for this. Thank you, Councilor Lucas.
Hi, Mark Sangiolo, the architect for the project. I just want to make everyone aware that the project did have a special permit last year, and it's all the construction is basically done and it came out great. We had the building was 1825, a historic carriage house in the rear of the property that was restored. The use is really going to be the same thing. It will be always, even with the accessory, would be occupied by 3 family types. In this scenario where there are 3 separate units, it'll give the opportunity to have different sized units available to the public. The carriage house in the back will be 1,637 square feet. And the front unit of the existing building is 2,693, including the 3rd floor. And the rear of the existing house is 1,906. We didn't really realize we could go for this approval with the last special permit, so we kind of got just caught into a snafu of getting it as an accessory. But we really would like the 3 separate units. And as I said, the only physical change to the site is adding the 1 parking space. The rest of the project is already built out and ready to go, and it looks wonderful.
Are you all set with that, Mr. Sangiolo?
Yes, thank you.
Can I just ask you a question about that? Are you saying that when you came before us for the special permit, the owners did not understand that the difference with an ADU is that there needed to be owner occupied in one of the other units, and that they didn't understand that, and now they just want to make it be a separate unit without any owner occupancy?
No, we did understand that. We didn't understand that we could have gone for the 3 units at that point.
Okay, just trying to get clarity on that.
Sure.
Thanks. Now we'll ask if there are any members of the public who have questions or comments. Mary Lee Belleville.
Thanks, Chair Kelly. Your question kind of leads a little bit into mine, and I guess I just have a couple clarifying questions, because we do have an ADU ordinance, if you will. I don't know if that's the right term. But it seems like there's a pretty significant ask here to ignore the owner occupancy requirement and the ADU ordinance to then allow 3 independent units. And so I'd be interested in any discussion about that. And then the other thing, I just had a clarifying question. I assume, given the age of this property, which I think was, I can't remember, but clearly it went before historic. Did this have a demo delay, and did it get waited out, or did it get approved with a plan that's now being changed?
We didn't wait out the demo delay. We went before historic and got historic approval at the first pass, and it was built out to those specifications.
So I would just say, that being said, if historic approved it on a certain set of plans, I think it has to go back to historic to approve any change.
I don't think so, because we're really not changing the buildings at all. There's no change to the buildings. We're not,
Well, and that might be, but there is, that doesn't negate I think what would be an important discussion about, does this in any way fly in the face of our current ADU ordinance?
no, there's no flying.
I don't think that's your, Mark, I don't think that's your call. I'm interested in what the
Okay.
committee thinks.
Let me interject here for a second. It is not my understanding that it would have to go back to historic because there's no change to the exterior of the structures, but we do have Jonah Temple on this call, I believe. Jonah, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, my apologies, I was on mute. So there's no issue with the change in use here. The new proposed use is allowed by special permit if that is what the city council wants to issue here. And as to historic, I'd be open to planning's input as to whether or not it needs to go back. I'm not sure that it does, but if it does, it can certainly happen after a special permit is issued.
My understanding is that it does not, because there are no changes proposed to the structure.
And that makes sense to me as well.
So just to be clear, it's any change on the property, right? Not just the structure. It doesn't matter. I'm much more interested in the first question about the AD. I'll accept the response on that. I'm just curious about the impact to our ADU ordinance. If we're going to waive the ownership requirement for one of the units.
Ms. Belville, I think that if it were continuing to be an ADU, it would require an ownership requirement, but what they're seeking here is to do it as a separate unit. So I don't think the ownership requirement pertains here, but Mr. Temple, you can weigh in again on that.
Nope, that is absolutely correct. This will not be an accessory unit, so it will not have to comply with the accessory requirements.
Yep. Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Belville?
Nope, thank you.
Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is in my ward. Church Street is a beautiful street. I actually was thinking about, I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion, not necessarily right here at this time, but I'm curious how many ADUs have been transformed to a separate unit altogether. And is that a trend that we want? So, but actually my concern here more is there are no parking in the front setback in any of this street. It's a pretty historic area of, these are some of the oldest homes in the city. All farmhouses built around the 1840s, 1860s. I personally, and I know I should give my personal opinion, but having a parking in the front setback is abhorrent to me. And I don't know why we would do it here. I'm also concerned about increasing the impervious surfaces here as well, but it just changes the whole character of the street when you start parking in your front yard. So I would object to that strongly.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. Councillor Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sangiolo, maybe you can help me with this, with my question. And I think it's fine what you're trying, I have no objection to changing from accessory unit to a third unit, but what I really want to know is why did the owners decide to do this? Because we're having a hard time getting very many accessory dwelling units, and I'd love to hear the reasons, and maybe I could take it offline with you. But this, whatever information you could give us about why this happened and why they decided to make this change, I think it would be helpful to the council in terms of policy issues. So we don't have to talk about that tonight, but I would like to talk to you about it at some point.
I don't mind discussing it.
Okay, go ahead, Mr.
So
Sangiolo.
the property was purchased and my client thought we could get a special permit to do the 3 units, separate units. But we were advised that that was not the case. We couldn't do that legally. So we were kind of stuck into, oh, well, I guess we'll have to do an accessory unit. And it's a difficult sell. This unit's a little larger than most accessory units, so it's a little difficult sell. But if we had known we could have gone for the special permit, we definitely would have done that. And you know, the project came out really nice. It's a historic building. We respected the historic character. No one tried to wait out any demolition delays or tear the building down. We liked the building, liked the carriage house. Is really exciting to work on it. I think it affords a really nice opportunity. Everyone's talking about, you know, trying to get more units into the city and people, the missing middle and all that. And this is a small unit, 1,600 square feet. So, and that's counting to the, it's really an upside down design, the carriage house. The living spaces are up, the bedrooms are down. So the 1,600 is even counted just to the 5-foot ceiling height. So really, theoretically, it's a little smaller than that. So I think it'll be a nice unit to have marketed to a small family or a young couple.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I appreciate knowing that you really wanted 3 units in the beginning and then you did this as a fallback position. So I feel better about the accessory unit going away now that I hear that story. So I appreciate that. But with respect to that last parking space, are you guys willing to move it back? Or do you use impervious pavers or do something else?
Yeah, of course, we would, and the reason that that's the only really place it can be located. You see the way the geometry of the parking is now, it's tandem parking, so it really wouldn't work for 3 units. We can push it back. I was looking at it earlier. We could push it back another 3 feet towards the house, so it'd be an 8-foot setback, and try to do some landscaping there, and you know, we could provide a landscape plan. I understand everyone's feeling about parking in the front, but it's only 1 space. And, you know, there's a trade-off in all projects. I think there was a lot of positives happened in this project with saving the building, saving the carriage house. Really, I think it adds a lot to the street, and it came out very nice.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no issue with this project going from the accessory to single family attached. My question to planning would be, and I don't know, I don't know the answer to this, but if it's single family attached, don't all of the buildings need to be attached? Because only units 1 and 2 are, unit 3 is by itself. So just some clarification on that.
Kat, would you like to answer that for Councilor Lucas?
Sure. It's actually in the definition of single family attached. I don't have it to hand, but I believe in the zoning memo, Jane explained that. I know it's a sort of a misnomer in some ways, and because it doesn't all have to be in the same structure.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I could clarify a little bit. It's 3, it's basically 3 single families, but it doesn't have to be attached. It can be in 2 separate structures, if that makes sense. But they're actually 3 single families.
Yeah.
So some of them are attached, 2 of them are
Mhm. Yeah.
attached, and they're just called attached because 2 of them are attached. They don't all 3 have to be attached.
Right.
So, okay, thank you. So the other issue is the parking stall. And, you know, I've gone back and forth on this one. I agree with Councilor Leary in that parking in the front setback is not what we try to do, and putting a car in front of that house simply doesn't fit. It doesn't match. So Mr. Sangillo, if you could move the parking stall back away from the street so that you don't need the relief. If it is that, can't speak. If it is possible, I would highly recommend that. I also, you know, looking at the site plan and looking at the street, moving it to another location, which is what planning recommended in their planning memo, wouldn't make any sense, because if you move it to the other side of the house, now you need a second curb cut. And I know that's something that we don't usually like to do on the land use. So keeping the parking stall on that side of the house is appropriate, but I would say if you can, move it back so you don't need the relief. And I don't know if we would need to approve it subject to second call, or if we would need to hold it to see if the petitioner can accomplish that. But I will always follow. I want to hear what everyone else has to say.
Thank you, Counselor.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. Counselor Downs.
Thank you. I have a question that is kind of related to what both Councilor Lucas and Ms. Belleville asked, and that is effectively outside of the owner occupancy issue, what's the difference between having an accessory apartment versus 3 single-family homes?
Are you asking planning?
I'm asking planning through the chair.
Thank you. Kat or Elisa?
I mean, there are different dimensional standards that apply to an accessory unit. So that's one element. But I think the owner occupancy is
the only other
a sticking
legal
point, or
sticking
an
point.
important factor in considering which use applies.
So, through the chair, Mr. Sangiolo, is that the goal here is to be able to move out and have 3 separate single-family homes to sell?
Yeah, it really is. And that was really, like, as I said, mentioned before, that's really what the premise of the original project was going to be, but we got kind of thought we couldn't do it and ended up with the accessory. Now it's kind of a difficult sell, the large accessory at that square footage with the other unit, and so we're having a little trouble. It'll be a better project with 3 separate uses. I think it'll be
right.
Better for the city too, myself, really.
Well, I'm happy to see this project as it is. I think it is does look lovely, and I like that you have smaller units here. And I'm fine with the change in use, and in part because nothing else changes. The one thing that does change is the additional parking, and I will align myself with Councilor Leary, but go a little further. I would just prefer not to have that additional space and have you come to us and just say, we don't want to put in that additional space. More on-site parking, more off-street parking usually means more driving. More driving means more traffic. I would prefer we start to imagine a future and build for a future where we're not driving everywhere. So I would otherwise support this project if you could remove that 1 parking spot in the front.
Yeah, I think if you all had some flexibility on the lot coverage and open space, there might be another configuration where we could move it back. As I mentioned before, the problem is we have 2 tandem spaces now, so that's like very difficult to deal with for 3 units.
I understand. I have a tandem driveway myself, and it's a royal pain in the butt if you are, particularly once it snows, to try to figure out how you're going to move cars if you have more than one.
We can take another look at it and see what we can do on the site plan to see maybe what's a little more amenable to get the front space out.
Yeah, like I said, my preference would be just not add the parking, but on the other hand, I want to see this project be successful and something you can sell. But again, it would be even better if you had
we'll take another,
3 parking spots.
We'll take another
just
look
the
at
4.
it.
Thank you.
Great. Let's stop the back and forth for now and move on.
I think Councilor Lebovitz had his hand up or was attempting to put his hand up.
Yes, thank you. I was about to call on him. Councilor Lebovitz.
I just wondered, did you say you could do some planting or if you move the parking space back, you could do some planting that would obscure the car and or that space and make it less visible from the street? Because I have the same objection to the parking there. But I might be able to be convinced that if you could do something to block the view of the space and the car, that would be parked there, I might be open to supporting that. Obviously, my preference would be not to have it at all. But if an alternative couldn't be come up with, couldn't be proposed, I'd like to see an alternative of some vegetation blocking that area. Maybe enhancing the view from the street altogether.
Thank you, Councillor Lobovitz.
Thank you.
Any other members of the committee have comments? Councillor Farrell?
Thank you very much. I think this is a fabulous project. In fact, I like the entire street. But I do find that parking slot in the front of the house to be really jarring. And I know this is a very difficult situation with 3 units. But I just think it's inappropriate, in my opinion, to have a car parked in front of the house. One of the joys of driving down Church Street is, in fact, that you get to see those houses and all of them, of the frontage, and the similarities and the differences among them. But it is the one piece of this plan that I just, as I said, I find very jarring. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Farrell and I took a look at this site a few days ago, and I agree it's a beautiful street. I'm very sympathetic to the need for at least 5 parking units for 3 families. So I understand the challenge of trying to create that in this space. But I think I agree with everyone else that putting it in the front is very unfortunate. I'd like to see a redesigned plan before we take a final vote, if that's possible. It's just my thought on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm thinking I would like to see a motion to hold on this item and see what the petitioner can come back with in terms of taking in our comments. I also would prefer not to see an additional parking spot, but I'm going to keep an open mind about it because it is, in other ways, I really do like the project. But I don't want to set a precedent with parking in the front setback, especially on Church Street near Farlow Park and that area. So that's what I'm thinking about now. I'm making a motion to hold.
I second the motion to hold.
And before we do that, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing too. Would you like to make that?
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
We'll vote on that in a second.
I'm sorry, Chair, you would want to keep the public hearing open.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's true, because we're going to hold it. You're right. Thank you. I'll just sort of state my opinion here, which is in agreement with almost everyone else who's spoken. I find this parking spot not only in the front setback, but right in front of the house, out of character and jarring. And I would look forward to the motion to hold to try and let Mr. Sangiolo and the team take another look at this and figure out what's another way of doing it. I appreciate that it would be a pervious parking spot, but I think a little more time to take a look at that, because we've heard now from almost everyone on the committee that front parking spot is problematic. So right now we will take, we have the motion to hold and we have a second by Councillor Block. Let's vote on that.
Councillor Block,
Aye.
Councillor Downs,
Aye.
Councillor Farrell,
Aye.
Councillor Kelly,
Aye.
Councillor Leary,
Aye.
Councillor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Councillor Lucas,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you next time.
Our final docket item for the night is number 12-21. It's a request to allow ground floor residential use to allow 3 stories and a 39.3-foot height to exceed FAR and associated parking waivers at 209-211 Adams Street. We'll hear first from the planning department.
All right, I am sharing my screen. This is Kat Kemet again from planning. This is a special permit for 209 211 Adams Street. The property consists of an 8,830 square foot lot, which is improved with a two-family dwelling constructed in 1880. It is located in the Business Use 2 district at the corner of Adams Street and Murphy Court in Nanantum. The surrounding area is mostly zoned Business Use 2 and Multi-Residence 2. The land uses are a mix of residential, commercial, and mixed-use sites. Direct abutters include commercial buildings, single and two-family dwellings, and mixed-use structures. The site is really close to the 558 bus, I believe within 200 feet, and it is within easy walking distance of a number of other amenities in the area. This is the existing site plan with the two-family dwelling here. Because a minimum of 10,000 square feet is required for the current residential use on the lot, the size is non-conforming at 8,800 square feet. The structure has a non-conforming height of 2.5 stories, where 2 stories is allowed by right. The site has vehicular access from curb cuts on both streets that it fronts on, which lead to 2 perpendicular paved driveways that run along both of the sort of rear lot lines. A chain link fence runs along the northwest and southwest property lines. The lot is relatively flat with some trees along the frontage and grass towards the rear of the lot. The petitioners here are proposing to demolish the existing structure on the lot and construct a 3-story multifamily dwelling with 5 units. As proposed, the project needs relief to allow a ground floor residential use in the Business 2 district. It needs site plan review for a building that is over 10,000 square feet. It needs relief to allow a 3-story structure that is 39.3 feet in height. It needs relief for a floor area ratio of 1.25 and relief to allow parking in the front and side setbacks and within 5 feet of the street. In reviewing this request, the council should consider if the site in BU2 is an appropriate location for the proposed development, if the proposed development will adversely affect the neighborhood, if the proposed development will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved, if the floor area ratio of 1.25, where up to 1 is allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, and if literal compliance with the number of parking stalls within the front and side setbacks and within 5 feet of the street is impracticable due to the nature of the use, or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot. This is the proposed site plan. The petitioners propose to demolish the existing dwelling and construct the multifamily residential building with 5 units. It needs relief to allow the residential use on the ground floor of a building with residential above in the district. It needs the site plan review. Because it is more than 10,000 square feet of new gross floor area. All 4 setbacks will decrease in this plan, but no relief is required because all of the setbacks proposed meet or exceed the minimum requirement in the district. The building is proposed at 39.3 feet and 3 stories in height, where up to 24 feet and 2 stories is allowed by right. So that aspect of the project needs relief. The maximum floor area ratio by right for a 3-story building is 1, with up to 1.5 allowed by special permit. This building is proposed with a floor area ratio of 1.25, with a total gross floor area of just under 11,000 square feet. So that does require special permit relief. The construction will be wood framed slab on grade, so there is no basement. The building will have a roof deck enclosed by an aluminum railing and rooftop enclosures for mechanical equipment for each of the 5 units. In terms of parking, 10 parking stalls are proposed in total, so no waiver is needed because there are 5 units. Each unit will have 1 parking garage space accessed at the floor level and 1 surface stall. And all of the surface stalls are going to be located up here. The driveway off of Adams Street will be maintained in its current location and provide access to an entrance and dedicated parking space for each of the 5 units along this left-hand side. This driveway also leads to surface parking for 3 vehicles towards the rear of the lot up here. 2 surface parking stalls will be accessed from the curb cut on Murphy Court, which will be moved a bit further back towards the rear of the lot. So in total, there will still be 2 curb cuts. This one will just move a little bit. Parking is not allowed within the front and side setbacks or within 5 feet of the street. So all 5 surface stalls are located wholly or partially within the side setback of 19.7 feet. So they all require that relief. And the 2 stalls over here are located directly on the front lot line on Murphy Court. So they need that additional relief. This is the north elevation. This is how the project will present from Murphy Court. Units 2 through 4 will front on this street, and they each have individual entrances along this facade. The front setback will decrease on this street from 20.2 feet to 10.2 feet, and the curb cut will be relocated a bit further this way. This is the east and the west elevations, so the shorter sides of the building. These are units 1 and 5. They each have their own entrance at either end of the building. Unit 1 will front on Adams Street. Unit 5 will face out to the abutting property at the rear. The Adams Street setback will decrease from 19.5 feet to 10.1 feet. The rear setback facing west will decrease from 19.1 feet to 15.2 feet. And in terms of the size of each of the units, the interior units in the previous slide are all approximately 1,850 square feet. These end units are a bit bigger. They're each approximately 2,100 square feet. This is the south elevation. This will face the abutting property on Adams Street. An entrance and single stall parking garage will be available for each unit here. And the driveway on this side on Adams Street will be paved and provide access to 3 surface parking stalls at the rear of the site as well. The petitioner has provided a landscape plan with their application, which shows some screening and plantings for the projects. It includes a variety of shrubs, perennials, and ornamental grasses, mostly concentrated along the frontages on Murphy and Adams. 8 red maples are proposed along the perimeter as well. And there is an existing chain link fence that separates the driveway in Adams from the abutting driveway over here. That will be replaced with a 6-foot tall privacy wall. Overall, staff don't have an issue with the proposed use, but in our memo, we did note that the height and FAR are a bit large for the area, considering it's a residential only building. We suggest that the petitioner consider modifying the scale of the building to be a bit more in keeping with neighboring structures. This could include lowering the roof line or reducing the sizes of 1 or more of the units to lower the floor area ratio. Also wanted to note that the city engineer has issued a memo that states the mitigation costs for sewer inflow and infiltration. So if the project as proposed is approved, they recommend that a fee of $75,567 be paid for the sewer inflow and infiltration. And I'll stop there for any questions.
Thank you, Kat. Shall we hear from the petitioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Lawrence Lee, Rosenberg, Freeman and Lee, offices at 246 Walnut Street in Newton. I want to actually welcome the new members of the City Council, so I look forward to working with you all. So on behalf of the petitioner, Mark Svasky, who's here, Treffel Flesch, who is the architect, I don't want to repeat what Kat mentioned in her presentation, but hopefully, and if I may, Madam Chair, to share my screen, and I can, okay. So just really briefly, for those who are not familiar with the lake, we're right on Adams Street here. We're at the corner of Murphy and Adams. We are in a business 2 zoning district, and it is currently improved with a non-conforming 2-family home. And we are looking to put 5 residential units here. In terms of density, I wanted to just give some relativity to it in context. The lot area per unit that we're proposing is about 1,766 square feet a unit. By illustration, right across the street on Murphy, there are a bunch of single-family homes that I think are really much in line with the density, approximately 1,700 square feet approximately of lot area per unit. Some are even tighter than that. You have a couple of 2-family homes, a commercial building across the street with Shaking Crab, which is makes a part of the corner in the neighborhood. And it's a very lively area, as we all know. Here's some photographs. So this is the house right here. If you can see my cursor directly across the street, we have some commercial buildings and parking lot, and Shaking Crab is right here at the corner on Murphy. I think there's some of the facts here. So one of the things that I do want to highlight and address is the height, which is really not it's a technical number, the 39 feet. That counts to the top of these hatches that are going to be on the roof. So I want to jump to the slide that illustrates that. Some of these elevations you'll see. I do want to illustrate this. You may not be able to see it here, but I want to highlight for you. So this green line here, if you can see, this is right to the top of the hatch of these roof access. Think of it as a almost like a bulkhead. And the 39 feet is to that line. And so you'll see here on the side here, really the roof is in line with the abutting buildings, the streetscape illustrates, and it's at just under 32 feet. So the 39 feet in height is really not a true representation of the height of the building. So hopefully that gives you some context. As it relates to the density, the 5 units per for this lot, again, it is really much in line with the neighborhood. The size of the units are also very much in line with the neighborhood size of homes that you see. The other things I do want to highlight, and these, I'm just kind of jumping through some of these slides which you've seen. We have had a lot of neighborhood communications. We've had many meetings, community meetings. We've had a couple at Sons of Italy. Mark's done a very good job in talking with our abutters, and I think you may have received several letters and emails of support. So I think that's a representation of our outreach and discussions. And the project has progressed from our first iteration to what it currently is. Design has changed to a more residential feel. The massing has been reduced. It was originally 6 units to 5. We originally had a commercial unit in the front. Neighbors did not want us to have that, so we eliminated it. So those are just examples. The parking spaces that we are asking for were requested by our neighbors as well. They wanted to make sure that the property supports all of the parking requirements of the units. And then some of the renderings that I think may be helpful to illustrate. Here's a rendering of the proposed building. And as you can see, this is a very much of a residential feel. It fits right in, the size, scale, massing. You have, again, Shaking Crab right here, which is a commercial building. The FAR that's being addressed, this building would be something that would already exceed the FAR. This is right up against it. You can see that there's no setbacks. There are a lot of tight buildings here. By special permit, we are allowed to ask for 1.5 FAR. We are asking for 1.25, so we're not maxing out the FAR by special permit. So hopefully that gives you some context, and welcome any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Is that the presentation by the team?
Yes.
Okay. We're now going to listen to any comments or questions from the public. I believe I see Ms. Belleville's hand up again.
Thanks, Chair Kelly. I would just love to hear some discussion from the committee about, especially in light of the fact that this area has not had any zoning changes. Discussion about the height, both in terms of the actual feet and the the actual stories and the numeric height. And then also a parking proposal of two parking spaces per unit. I just would love to hear a discussion from the committee as far as how this aligns with the vision of the city. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Belleville. I'm guessing that the committee will want to talk about those things. I'm going to move on though and take comments from Terry Sorrow.
Hi, thank you. Terry Sorrow from the Northampton Neighborhood Association Chair. We met with Mark. We've had numerous meetings with Mark. Mark also met with the abutters. We worked closely. He made a lot of changes. And as far as, I don't know if Mary Lee, sorry, I think that's your name, not sure. As far as the 2-car parking, I don't know if you know our area, Adams Street, and where the units are going to be. I think you need 2-car parking, whether you agree or not. Adams Street is tight, and even if they had visitors, you don't want them parking on the street. Mark has gone over and beyond as a developer. He's met personally with the abutters. Actually, he also had put like iron, what do you call them, patios on the outside. And then he took those down. And then when it was on the urban committee, I mean, this to show you is you really don't know our area. They said to put them on the other side. And if you put them on the other side, you'd be looking at Murphy Court with Popeye on the building of Shaky Crab. So you wouldn't see much visuals there. As far as, like I said, we support this development. We support Mark. Mark is invested in our neighborhood. He even has a plan to when his workers where they're going to park, so Adams Street won't be tied up. So we are in full support of this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sorrow. Janine Stewart.
Hi, I'm Janine Stewart. I live at 251 Adams Street, which is pretty close to this development. Mark, I have to say, of all the developers that we've met with over the past year and a half, actually worked with us, listened to what we had to say. I'm not sure if Danielle Marzilli is on this, but she lives right next door. She had the most concerns because literally this building is going to be on top of her. And I know that I believe she sent a letter to the counselors, but she's in full support of it after everything. I wish that other developers, I can specifically point out Omar, have been difficult, or they say they're going to listen to us, but they really don't do much. So I am in support of it. He has gone above and beyond to work with us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Paul's iPad.
Oh, hi, this is Paul Antonellis. I'm one of the abutters. I own 1416 Murphy Court, and I'm in complete agreement with Terry Sorrow and the other woman. Mark's done a lot of redesign of the initial project, and he's met every condition that I've asked for anyway. So I just want to lend my complete support to what's going on tonight. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Antonellis. Is there anyone in the chamber? Yes, go ahead. Just let us know your name and address.
Danielle Marzilli, I'm the direct abutter this property. Sorry. Danielle Marzilli, 217 Adams Street. Mark has worked very closely, has listened to all of my concerns, has rendered his plans to our needs, and has really listened to the community. He's been great to work with. The concerns about parking, we requested that because the street is tight as it is. I know that people not from the area have complained about the excessive parking spots, but that was something that we directly requested and he fulfilled. I don't know what other concerns there were that I could address being a direct abutter, but we're in full support of him. And I can answer any questions that anybody else has.
Counselor Kelly, could I just offer one clarification on the parking question?
Sure.
Thanks. So I just want to make sure that Terry and the other residents of Nonantum understand, I don't agree that we should be restricting parking the way we are. I'm just suggesting that city have an honest conversation about what's realistic. So I live on a street where I also feel like every unit should have the potential for 2 parking spots. So don't misunderstand that I don't agree with you. We need to provide adequate parking. Just want to make sure that the city has that discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Belville.
Thank you.
I
Ms. Terry.
personally didn't think it was directed at you about that
Oh,
comment.
no, no, I didn't feel that personal.
Okay.
I just felt like I needed to clarify the point. Thanks.
We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, sir. Are you come on up?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Anthony Pellegrini Jr. from 58 Clinton Street. I'm chairman of the Northampton Children's Christmas Party Association, and I'm representing a bunch of the neighborhood people that knew the auto was coming up, and the Sons of Italy itself. They're right across the street. And by and large, everybody has agreed with the project, the height of the project. And that was one of our major concerns, and the parking. The height of the project has been taken down and set back because the first iteration was kind of like just a sheer, you know, it was close to the street, but it just looked like just a housing block. And Mark talked with us and they worked it out, you know, that it would look a little bit different, and it does look a lot different. You know, as far as the parking, everything's tucked in the back. The existing house had plenty of parking before too, and you know, they have all had kids. So as far as working with the neighborhood, I know the vision for the city may not be the same in one village as it is in another, and we're well aware of that. And it's really tight. You know, we've had parking issues all over the place, and everything's got tagged not during the storm, but after the storm. So there's you know, it's a contentious thing with parking. I think it's great that we move forward in as far as the amount of units he's cut back, and to take another one away, I don't think it would really affect the project. I think it's just about the right size, you know, and it was someone else come in, they made an audit of work with us on this type of project. So I think it's a well accepted iteration of the project, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking, Mr. Pellegrini. Anyone else from the public? And then we're going to take it into the committee.
Can I just say one more thing? It's Terry Sarro.
Maybe. What do you want to say, Ms. Sarro?
So I'm just saying, you know, looking all around us on Middle Street, and on Chapel Street, and on Clinton Street, it's all around us. I mean, we're talking 5 to 6 units. And I'm not saying, and some of the developers that we've met and worked with are not as responsive as Mark. Do we like all this tear downs and putting 5 and 6? No, but it's not the real world. Unfortunately, this is what's going on. But Mark has been one of the best developers that I have worked with in around the neighborhood And I can say Riverdale was the other great, so I'm not opposed to development like some people think. But in the right place and in the right spot, yes. So thank you for letting me speak again.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. We are going to take it into committee, but as we segue into that, I want to say, I think we hear loudly from the petitioner and from the public how much work has gone into outreach to the neighborhood here, how many more meetings have occurred than usual, how much listening and adapting and changing plans has happened. And that is something we on land use ask to see all the time. So before we even hear more comments, which I'll hear, I'm sure we will get some good ones from the committee. I, on behalf of the land use committee, want to commend your team, and we're lucky that we have the attorney and the developer and the architect all here to answer any questions that land use committee members or other counselors may have. So let's go into committee. We'll start with Councillor Downs.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I also wanted to, mention, I will second your comments about the amount of work with the neighborhood and the support. So my comments are in part to the neighbors who are here. I understand that parking and driving is really difficult in Nonantum, but it's a really great walking neighborhood. It's one of our denser neighborhoods, and there's a lot of foot traffic in the village. I think it's, if anything, one of our greatest neighborhoods for people and for walking. One of the other concerns I know is gentrification. So let me just add that as preface to this. 2 parking spaces per unit, which is our minimum. I would much rather see this in a walkable neighborhood this close to Watertown and all the buses there, and Washington and all the buses there, and to have fewer parking spaces, and I'll tell you why. Parking on site increases driving. Having 2 spaces, and I understand, are these are ownership units?
That is correct.
Right. So having 2 spaces means you will likely have 2 cars per unit. Whereas if you had 1 space, you'd be more likely to have 1 car per unit. That's something not just that I'm saying because I don't like cars. I own a car. I drive a car. It's that it's backed up by multiple studies that show if you are doing a lottery and some units come with parking and some don't, the ones that come with parking, even if the tenant came without a car, they'll have a car. They'll bring a car. I also want to note that, when you buy a home with off-street parking, you are much more likely to be bringing a car and making a prepayment toward car ownership. That's also been shown in walkable neighborhoods where, like Park Slope, which is very dense, very gentrified, has fewer on-site parking spaces, fewer drivers, whereas Queens, which also has had people killed over parking spaces on street, has a lot of off-street parking, but the same kind of access to transit, the same density, and actually is less gentrified than Park Slope. Way more car ownership and way more traffic violence around parking spaces. So my preference would be for this to have fewer parking spaces. I'm not going to hold up approval of this project for that. I just want the neighborhood to hear that and understand that. The surface lots, as I'm reading the engineer's memo, the surface parking, and as I'm reading the planning's memo, comes into the setbacks, and that's part of the relief we're granting. Because I think we ought to get rid of those surface parking spaces, inclined not to give that relief. The other thing I note is the engineer's memo about the drainage, not just for the driveway, but for the parking stalls off of Murphy Court, the little lawn and the permeable pavers. I will quote from the memo, although this sounds nice, it does not have any measures for possible gasoline or oil leak treatment, such as a catch basin with gas trap hooded outlet. Additionally, there's no maintenance plan for this surface. So we would need to get that fixed before we approve any surface parking spaces on this. Otherwise, I have no problem with this. I'm glad the neighborhood is happy with having 5 units there. I will note that on Murphy Court, the Commission on Disabilities just asked for 2 on-street handicap spaces. So that's 2 fewer spaces that can be used on Murphy Court. And it's because people with disabilities who live on Murphy Court that end are having trouble finding any place to put their car. If anything, we've got to start talking with the police about enforcing the time limits, or perhaps putting time limits on some of these streets where I understand there are out-of-state cars parking all day. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Ms. Stewart, I just want to tell you, I see your hand up, but right now we're in committee. I will come back to you if your hand is still up, but next we'll hear from Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do also, I'm very pleased that the developer has worked so closely with the community. I mean, that's really a wonderful thing. So to get all this support. I do have concerns about the amount of parking and the impervious surface. And Councillor Downs has also already eloquently spoken to both those. I know the neighborhood is concerned about parking, but I also know I hear a lot of complaints about traffic and speeding cars, and there's just a direct, you build more parking, you get more cars. So that's something I think was already said by and Councillor Downs regarding that, and she gave more detail and specifics, which I appreciate. So I think the parking is really, really excessive. And I'm also concerned about the parking and the setbacks. I'm concerned about the impervious surface. What actually is the change in the amount of impervious surface between the existing structure and the new lot? And how much open space is actually on the property?
So the existing open space is 53.7 and 23.1%.
So you mean it went from 53.7 to 21?
Correct.
Okay.
And I wanted to, if I may, this is a business district. And
Yes.
so by right, if a regular building permit, no open space, 0 open space is required under a by right development.
Yes, this is a business district, but this is not a business. This is a resident in a special permit, but I understand that. So those are 2 of my concerns. I'll hear what my colleagues have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lee, good to see you. Nice to finally meet you in person. So this project has changed a lot. I know looking in NewGov, it was originally 4 stories mixed use, right?
Correct.
With 6 units, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now we're at 3 stories, 5 units, and that was after considerable community engagement.
Correct.
Okay. And out of that, you brought it down to 39 feet, where 36 is the maximum, and you need some relief for 3 feet for some structure, but I couldn't figure out what exactly it was. Could you go over that again, please?
Yes, I can. So there is a roof hatch for the roof access. And I want to pull up the roof plan for you. Give me 1 quick second, please. So if I may, Madam Chair, I'm going to share my screen one more time.
Do so.
Thank you.
We can all learn something about roof hatches here.
So
Learned
this
something
is
new
a
today.
roof plan, and I'll see if I can zoom in and I can give you a picture of what example of a roof hatch. So these are the decks. The access panels are these drawings over here. These are the solar panel locations. I'm gonna stop share and then I'm gonna share the this. If you can see this. So it's very minimal, as I call it a bulkhead. That's my my way of describing it. It's very minimal. You can't really see it. So where we're talking to the 39 feet is really to the top of this structure.
Eh,
So hopefully that helps.
Okay, so sticking with the roof deck, does that go? If I'm living there and I want to go on a roof deck, do I have access to the entire roof? Or a small portion?
It's private exclusive use. So let me go back to the plan and
Well, I hope it's private. I don't want members of the public up there.
so each unit will have its own private deck. And hopefully this plan will show you this. So each unit will have access through these hatches. And this over here will be an illustration of one deck space, private deck space. Here's another one, here's another one, here's another one, and here's another one.
Okay, all right, and
And
okay,
it's set back purposely away from the edge of the building so as not to disturb our neighbors.
yeah, of course. Okay, all right. So when I first saw this, I thought your roof of the third floor was at 39 feet, but it's not. It's, I assume, somewhere around 36 feet, maybe even
It's
lower.
actually a little lower. It's actually about 32.
32.
Right.
Okay. So that was one of my objections going into this. But after listening to this part of the presentation, I now have a better understanding what the 39 feet is. I'm not a huge fan of the roof deck. I don't think we have any roof decks in the neighborhood, do we? I don't think we do. Yeah. I mean, so this, okay. All right, but the neighbors are okay with the roof deck?
Correct.
They are aware? Okay, good. The current use is a two-family house, so you can have probably somewhere around 4 cars there. The cars, it's a double curb cut, right?
Yes.
And I would assume at least 2 cars park off of Murphy Court, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so, and the current plans that you have, 2 cars will park on Murphy Court, so there's no additional cars going on Murphy Court. That's good to know. Between the 3 cars that are not in the garage and the 2 cars that are on Murphy Court, they'll have different access points. Is there a fence that separates the 3 cars here and the 2 cars here? Or is it just grass?
There's a lawn area, so I can jump to give me 1 second. I can give you go to the landscape plan for you.
Yeah, I've seen this. Yeah, you have the lawn there on the left. But is there a fence so that cars cannot go over said lawn?
Oh, bumper stops. Curb stops are gonna be installed.
Oh, you have curbs. Okay, so, all right, good. All right. And has this revision been seen by the Urban Design Commission? I know the prior one did, but this one has?
Yes.
And what did they have to say?
I think they like the redesign. They like the downsize, the massing and the bulk. Right. So in terms of the design, in terms of making it more prominent that the individual townhouses are designed in that way, and that the residential feel is something that was welcomed as well.
Okay. All right, and then I'll just weigh in on the parking. I think the 10 parking stalls here is fine. It's appropriate. It's what we require in our zoning. Didn't think I was gonna get applause. It's fine here. 10 parking stalls, they're probably gonna drive to work or drive to here or drive to there, drive their kids to soccer practice. I have no issue with that. So, I think this, my biggest complaint was the 39 feet, but that's been explained. So I think, this is good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. Counselor Block.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I have some questions for the planning department.
I'm sure they're attentively listening.
I'm very interested in traffic congestion data for Adam Street on this stretch between Washington and Watertown Streets. It's a highly trafficked stretch, very congested at peak use times. So I'd like to know what information we have that measures that, and in particular, the rating of the intersections of Adams and Washington and Adams and Watertown, again at peak times. I don't know if you have that available, and if you don't, how can we get it?
Let's ask Kat and Elisa if they can address that question right now.
Yeah, for this type of project, at this scale, we typically wouldn't
Recording
have
stopped.
a traffic impact assessment, and that's probably the kind of information you're looking for. But for this size, we
Recording in
don't require
progress.
that. I would also say for the intersection level of service, that's information we can probably get from the transportation engineering department. So we can definitely get that to you, but not in time for this meeting.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I need to say, seconding what the chair said and what others have said about the developer working with the neighborhood, that's going to go a long way, I think, towards reassuring this committee that you've listened and have responded to neighborhood issues. That's very important. It doesn't mean there still aren't questions that we have. It is a crowded site. You can just tell that going from 2 units to 5, going from 4 cars to 10, without entering the debate on how many parking stalls there ought to be. It's quite a percentage increase, and I'm concerned about that, and concerned generally about the congestion in that part of Nonantum. It's pretty significant at times. Those are my thoughts about it for now. And I'll love to hear what other people have to say.
Thank you, Counselor Block. Counselor Leary, your hand is up again.
Yes, if I'd like to go a second round, because I also just wanted to mention that on Adams Street, actually, not so much congestion, but actually speed. It's a very straight, wide street with no trees, very small trees. Recently, the city put in a rapid flashing beacon at Middle and Adams Street. There was a child hit there, and there have been some near misses, and the neighbors who live at that intersection have spoken up about their concerns about speeding cars. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And we're still looking at ways to make it safer. Getting back to the project, again, I like that it's, not so concerned about the number of projects and the density of it, and they're small, which makes them by nature more affordable. And that does fit in with the neighborhood very well. But the excessive parking, the parking in the setback, the reduction in impervious space is concerning. And I see you have an asphalt driveway. Had there any been consideration to making that into some kind of pervious surface? This evening, we're supposed to get, a very hard rain, and there's a lot of concern about flooding. And I'm sure you're all aware, the city's had some very significant flooding issues. Last year, we worked on a new stormwater ordinance, but we really have to think about the increase in impervious surface and where that water goes. And that is a concern here. I would prefer if the applicants did go back and look at the concerns that have been raised here this evening regarding the parking, the impervious surface, the parking in the setback, and consider more where you do have areas that are for parking that you consider an impermeable pavers or some kind of impervious asphalt there. But otherwise, I really am appreciative of the site, and I do think it's appropriate for actually the number of units. It's very walkable. It's near a lot of amenities, restaurants, and right there. I think Nuneaton is one of our most walkable neighborhoods. So I'd like to enhance and increase that and keep people thinking about walking everywhere. What Councillor Downs mentioned is all based on data and facts and what we know. You build a lot of parking, you get a lot of cars, and that's also a big complaint in the neighborhood is the number of cars and the speeding. So the two are kind of at odds with each other. I come down on the side, if you build it, they will come. I understand people drive, and there is parking needed. I'm not opposed to parking, obviously. I drive as well, but we need to be thoughtful about it. Do we want to continue to be, a city where we're building around our vehicles, or do we want to build it around our people and safe pedestrians, and our walkability? So those are my concerns. I would, if the time is right, I would entertain a motion to hold.
Thank you. We still have a few hands up, but we'll get back to you on that one. We're still in committee. I see some people from the public would like to speak again. Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll
I
get to
appreciate
you.
it. One, I would just not, I think if the developer ever chooses a new living, being a liaison in creating developments would be a great job for him. I'm truly impressed with everyone that we've heard from and that we've spoken.
Into the microphone.
I'm sorry, my mic is on. I don't know how to use it now, but I'm truly impressed with the support from the neighborhood. Not only those we've heard from in letters, but from people who've spoken to us. Secondly, wish you had included the rendering in your presentation because it changes my opinion about the look of the building completely. I think it is much more attractive than I thought it was going to be, and I'm happy to see that. Excuse me. One of the things that we clearly have a lot of effort to work on is this conflict between the need for more housing and the concomitant issue about more traffic and parking. I frankly, in my opinion, this building, as it's presented and in this location, and with the community being so supportive of it, gets my support, including the parking. I do have a concern and I'm concerned about what Councilor Leary said in contradiction. One of the things about the permeable parking, I'm sorry, right? The permeable material being used for those two cars, whether that can be used for the entire driveway, whether that's possible, something like that. And still listening to Councilor Downs concerned about gas leaks and oil leaks and that sort of thing. I don't know, but clearly the amount of permeable surface has diminished. And with that, we all want more landscaping I don't know how big the trees are that you're planning to put there will actually get. But I would be interested in even seeing something smaller and that wouldn't grow as big, but maybe the developer would consider making available some planting real trees in other areas of the immediate neighborhood that would like to have those trees. But I think it's a great project. My compliments to the developer and his working with the community. I think the design is significantly much better than I thought it was going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Farrell. I just wanted to check in with Counselor Lobovitz, who had his hand up briefly, to make sure that you don't want to speak now, or do you?
I think all my concerns have been raised. So I don't have anything further to add, except I do share the concern about parking and the number of parking spaces. I think it's a much bigger question for the city. I don't think it's quite fair to select one property to change the number of spaces and not others. I think we have to be consistent. Of course, there can be exceptions, but I don't think we should choose this property as sort of a statement about that when we may not be doing the same thing for other properties. So I'm new to this, but I think consistency is very important in this regard. I do share Councillor Downs's concern, and I think it's shall we say evidence-based. But I don't think, as I said, we should be choosing this property as sort of a case study for that policy. I do share, again, the concern about the permeability or impermeability, and I would encourage looking again at that issue.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Counselor Lobovitz.
Thank you.
I see the petitioners would like to have a word, but I do have 4 members of the public. Would you like to hear from them before you talk again, or would you like to say something now?
Yeah, so a couple of things really in terms of the engineering questions that have been raised. Just from the historic, my experiences of working on the land use committee, we have always deferred to the engineering department and the petitioners to work that out, engineering specific questions. And this is not the only review. So if the special permit were to be approved, the engineering department will review it all over again as part of the building permit process. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that currently there is no drainage system on the property. There is a lot of driveway at the property now. So we are required to contain all of the water for the project on site. So there's a robust system that's being designed as part of the project. Our engineer is also on the Zoom call, should there be any particular concerns that he can address. But it's a balancing act as it relates to engineering. There's also fire department access. They want to make sure that they can actually get on the driveway without sinking. So that type of balancing act we have to be mindful about. And then also just as it relates to parking, I know it's a larger discussion. I've been part of many of those with various projects, particularly down at the lake. I have been part of projects where parking waivers are requested and granted, and the neighbors are not too happy about that. So overall, I think it's a really tough balancing act. This is just one of the projects where we can accommodate parking on site, which happens to be the required number. It is something that the neighborhood adamantly and strongly feels that it's important to be added to our project. So from our perspective, it's a balancing of their needs, wants, what we can do on site on a particular instance, as well as what the city has advocated for fewer parking spaces. So there's no, I know we don't have a consensus, but I want to just share that. And if there's any engineering, our engineer is on the call.
Thank you. Normally, we wouldn't go back to the public, but I really do want to hear from everyone who has made an effort to come in person and online. So Janine Stewart has been waiting patiently. Janine, do you still want to say something?
Yes, I'll make it brief. I also want to say I represent 6 family members in Nonantum, pretty much in the same block that I'm on. I came home tonight just before I went to the police appreciation and came home, and there's cars parked all over Adams Street. I'm hoping they're going to be gone with the parking ban, but we had cars with snow on them on the streets. I know everyone is against the 2-car, but I think in Nonantum it's needed. If you come through our streets, there's cars all over the place. It's better to have it on a property than on the streets, I think. I want to remind everybody, we had a bike accident up on Watertown and Bridge Street. 2 other comments. We have limited bus service, and I think that's the need to have, that people need cars. There's not much bus service at all. And I just want to point out Craft Street had 1 unit, 1 car each, and they asked for a waiver, and that was just recently with, I think, in the last 6 months. So a lot of these people with 1 units, they're coming back asking for waivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. In the chamber, Ms. Marzilli, would you like to speak again? Well, I have Mr. Pellegrini too, but Ms. Marzilli's hand was up first. Okay, Mr. Pellegrini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you go on, people think of different things and something comes to mind. As far as the parking, and Janine's right, the bus service isn't
Speak
great.
a little closer to the microphone.
As far as the parking's concerned, Janine's right, the bus service isn't the best over there, but you have people that I know, we have people that I know, if you live in the neighborhood, you see them, they're at the bus stop. They all have cars and they may have an electric car. Most of them work in Boston. So there's no parking in Boston. So they leave their cars at home. They'd rather leave it in a garage than they would outside, especially in the winter. We see that because we see everybody and at the meetings with Mark, we address things like that. The bus stop's right there. It's right there. And as far as parking, you're gonna have 500, I'm going off a little bit, units on Craft Street. That's Newtonville per se, right? But it's no more Newtonville than it is Washington, DC. Because all that flow is coming up Clinton, Lincoln Road, Adams Street, or wherever you can find a parking space. So the abundance of cars, if you're worried about, and there's not 4-car parking on this property right now, there's at least 8. So the gentleman, I apologize, he wasn't correct. It's designated for 4, but they park a lot there, and they have been for years. So as far as parking, you're gonna be working with this for a lot longer than this little project. And I have to say, it's coming, maybe tomorrow night, I don't know. And a lot of us are real leery of that. So if you want to talk about parking, better pay attention.
Thank you. Ms. Marzilli, did you want to speak too?
I just wanted to reiterate that this was a major concern when Mark first came to us with 1-car parking for each unit. These units are 3 bedrooms. So as a mother, I understand that to take your child to sporting events, to take them to school, to take them places, I understand the lake is a walkable community, but to get to work and to get to school and to get to the activities, you need vehicles. The congestion for me to back out of my driveway now because of cars on the street is impossible. So we requested this parking on site and he accommodated us. So I feel that that should be taken into consideration by the council.
We're hearing that loud and clear tonight. Thank you. One moment, Mr. Bluck. I just wanted to check in. Brian Trim, did you have your hand up on Zoom?
I did it at one point. So my name is Brian Tim. I'm the professional engineer from RJ O'Connell and Associates. I wasn't sure if, it was time for me to add any input, but it sounded like the attorney did a really good job of being an engineer. He stole a lot of my thunder. From a drainage perspective, we do recognize there is an increase in impervious surface that is going to generate more runoff than what is happening today. But as attorney mentioned, there is no stormwater control from both a quantity perspective or a quality perspective on the site today. So, the installation, even though there is a lot of impervious surface here, we're going to be collecting all that runoff from all the driveway, all the roof. We're going to be treating it and then, cleaning it out, removing the sediment and putting it into the ground and hopefully reducing a lot of the runoff coming off of this site. So one other thing with the pervious pavers, I hear what everybody's saying, and I do have to have a conversation with the engineering department, specifically John Dalian, about the porous paver parking area. But those are really encouraged. Those are low impact development techniques that the state of Massachusetts, the city of Newton are really pushing for, instead of all physical, the typical drainage. So I will be in conversation with them and get the approval from them through this process. So I can assure you, we will be taking care of the drainage.
Mr. Tim, you're the engineer hired by this project team?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought you were saying. Because this is my first night chairing, I've been really generous with letting people speak more than once, and I'm going to do it one last time with Terry Sorrow, whose hand has been patiently up. But I'm going to say to everyone, both counselors and the public, that in the future, I would really rather you try and speak once. Sometimes you have to come back to it, but I'm not going to be doing this repeat talking consistently in the future. Terry Sorrow, go for it.
I appreciate it, and thank you. You're doing a great job. I'm not going to say too much. I guess we can agree to disagree, especially with Ms. Larry. She didn't even come to one of the neighborhood meetings with Mark. She knows the concerns of our neighborhood. I actually have, with the snowstorm and stuff, I actually have an illegally parked car in front of my house for 3 days that the police just came, put an abandoned sticker on it. So a lot of people will park on our streets and then take the bus to Boston. So Adams Street, and like Anthony Pellegrini said, we're going to be getting Court Street, that project there. We have right in back of Whole Foods. We're going to get all that parking. People, I'm sorry, cars are for streets. Streets are for cars, and bikes on Adams Street. As we can see, there was the bike accident on Bridge. So 2-car parking. And like Daniela said, when you have a family and those are 3, you need a car. So the neighborhood, we worked with Mark and we got the 2 parking spaces.
Oh,
and
geez. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sorrow. I think that we're done with public comment. Yes, Mr. Lee.
So I understand that Councilor Leary mentioned about holding the item. I do ask that we try to move the item tonight. I think you can clearly tell that we put a lot of work into this. Our neighbors are in full support of it. We can certainly work with the planning department if additional ideas can be had prior to the full council vote, provided that you hopefully approve it tonight. But I think this is one of the examples of the special permit process working, wherein there's a balance that has been made here between everybody. I know not everyone is fully satisfied, but I think this is a very good project. The neighborhood is in support of it. And the issues that have been raised can be addressed through the planning department and the engineering department. outside of lanes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And if I had hired you, I would be really glad that you made that final pitch also. We'll see where this goes with land use. Before we, Counselor Lucas.
I agree with the Mr. Lee. This is ready to go. I don't think there could be any more changes to this project. So if there is a motion to hold, I will vote no. Thank you.
We'll take a motion in a minute. I would just like to make a couple of final comments myself. Counselor Block. Remember what I said.
Thanks. Thanks, Madam Chair. I had sort of soft pedaled my views on parking, just couched in a concern for the traffic congestion and the ratings of the nearby intersections. But I just sort of have to say this for the record. Trying to control traffic by controlling parking may not be the most logical way to do that. Ride shares are always available 24/7, and ride shares will create more traffic, not less traffic, if people use them a lot. So I personally think that the data is not available yet to determine how best to balance parking and car ownership with rideshare usage. So I just think we need to keep that in mind as we try and figure out how to strike a balance with all of these factors. And partly for that reason, I have no reservations about what the developers proposed and what the neighborhood has supported strenuously. I do wonder if this site should really be for 5 units. It does seem crowded, but I understand that it's gone from 6 to 5. I hadn't realized that before this evening. So I'm still mulling this over about whether we should hold this and get some more data and think some more, or if we can pass it along to the city council. I'm still thinking about it. Thanks.
You have a few more minutes to ponder. I just made a few notes, nothing brainstormy or unique, but more a compilation of things I've been thinking about on this project and that we've already heard tonight. When I first looked at the site plan, it was a little bleakly paved for my preferences. As many of you know, I'm a landscape architect and site planner by profession. On the other hand, in this location and with this use, I understand why it is the way it is. And there was a comment made earlier about, is there a precedent for roof decks in this neighborhood? I don't think there has to be. I think that the roof decks provide private open space for these units that don't have outside green space. So for me, a private roof deck makes sense, and I can understand that. I was a little dismayed, though, to see only 8 trees on this entire site. I think that if we move forward with this tonight, and I personally do think that we should try to, that there's been a lot of work, a lot of time put into this. For me, the planting and the paving porous, pervious, impervious surfaces are the 2 things that I do think could be worked on between the petitioner and planning between now and a final vote. I think that the surface parking spots would be well considered to be used some sort of pervious paving on those. And I would love to see some more plants and greenery on this site. I think that the roof decks, again, as I said, sort of make up for no open space outside, and not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants to garden or mow a lawn. So I don't really have a problem with that. A comment was made, I think by Councilor Lobovitz, about not using a particular project to set an example inconsistently with other ones in the city. However, each site is different, and I have become convinced by hearing the neighbors over time in Nonantum and particularly on this project to say that they really have concerns around parking and street parking and traffic and speeding. And in this case, I do not have a problem with the 2 spaces per unit. And I think we have to, that's what a special permit lets us do. We consider each project and the uniqueness of every individual site. And for me, I think that's worth doing here. And we may say we are only requiring 1 parking spot per unit in other locations, and it might make sense in other locations. In this location, I think the 2 make sense. I give a lot of credit to the neighbors who have hung in here and given their input and are concerned about their neighborhood and given suggestions that the developer has taken. So again, let's always think of each proposition and each site with its own characteristics. And I think that's all I need to say, just my own thoughts on it. And I'm open to now would like you to make whatever motion you've decided and we'll vote on that. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Given all the conversation that we've had, I would like to propose we approve subject to second call. I would like to see some of the, what the developer comes back with and his attorney in things that we've mentioned this evening, because I think those are all concrete things that can be done in the time between now and the next city council meeting. I still, I know regarding the issues with parking, I think people know how I feel about it. It's a kind of a big picture, long-term consideration. We've built our cities and towns around automobiles for 100 years, and we get a lot of traffic and parking, a lot of cars, a lot of traffic, a lot of congestion, and a lot of dangerous intersections to both pedestrians and bicyclists. So that's a larger thing I think is still ripe for discussion. And it's really my major concern with this project, as well as the increase in impervious surface, which I think can be rectified. And then the other issues that engineering will address. So we'd like to hear that as well. So that's my proposal.
So Councilor Leary has made a motion to approve subject to second call. And I think you're probably going to make a motion to close the public hearing too.
Yes, let me make a motion to close the public hearing. Thank you, Chair.
Second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay, now let's vote on the motion made by Councilor. Oh, we need conditions? Sorry, that's right. Council order. Proposed council order. Yep.
Yes, one moment.
Excuse me?
Oh, would you like to
First,
take a
we're
look
going to
at?
hear the proposed council order, the conditions and the findings, and then we'll vote on the motion that Councilor Leary made to approve second, subject to second call. But first, we'll look at the findings and the council order.
So for findings, we have 1, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed project in the business use 2 district because the neighborhood has a variety of residential uses of different scales. 2, the project as designed will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the lot area per unit exceeds what is required for the district. 3, the proposed residential project will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because new plantings will be provided along the street frontage. 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And 5, the structure with an FAR of 1.25, where 1 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the
Just gonna
neighborhood.
take this last vote, Paul.
Because the other buildings on the street have multiple dwelling units on undersized lots. And for conditions, it's plan referencing, rodent remediation, the construction management plan, all electric appliances and utilities, an infiltration and inflow fee of $75,000, $75,567, standard building and occupancy conditions.
Excuse me, Ms. Kemet. Did you say that there is a rodent removal plan?
I did. Yeah, sorry,
Yep,
I didn't put
okay.
it on there, but it's in the draft
All right,
that
thank
was
you.
circulated.
Are there more, are you all done, Ms. Kemet?
I am.
All set? Let's take a vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrow, Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
motion passes.
And our work is done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming, for your comments, for your time.
Or I forgot to mention, it was Treff who reminded me of